grade, we are going to be starting off this pathway with a review of graphing and tables. And the reason why it says review is because it's something that you have already learned in previous years. So we should just be touching up on your vocab and some of your steps that you may need to freshen up on just to get started with this and solve problems with graphing and tables. Okay, so we're going to start off in this coordinate plane section. It says the coordinate plane includes two perpendicular, and perpendicular mean that they go up and down, and they have an intersection that happens right here in the middle. So they make a right angle. So two perpendicular number lines that intersect at the origin, and the origin is found at 0, 0. So that would be its ordered pair, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But basically what it's saying is that you can think of the grid or the plane as being two number lines that just intersect at 0, and so one goes up and one goes side to side. And that way you can kind of think of them as just increasing or decreasing in their value from left to, instead of left to right with negatives and positives, we're going to have one that goes up and then one that goes side to side. So the horizontal number line is going to be called the x-axis. So horizontal is the one that goes side to side. And if you look down here at this example, that means that we can go ahead and label right here the x, because it is going to be the one that goes side to side. And then the vertical one goes up and down, and that's going to be our y-axis. So we can go ahead over here by this 10 and put a little y. And then on the ordered pairs, so it says each point on the coordinate plane is described by an ordered pair which determines its location. So for example, an ordered pair could be 1, 2, and they have parentheses around them with a comma in the middle because we're separating the x-axis from the y. And when we follow these this ordered pair, it will take us to a specific location where we can use that location to determine different things. So the ordered pairs are written with the parentheses are there, the x is always first, and then a comma and the y. So they should look like that, where the first value describes the x-axis, or coordinate, I'm sorry. And the second will determine the y. Okay, so just make sure that you're noting that x is always the one that comes first, because sometimes there'll be questions and they'll ask you which one was the x, and it's always going to be the one that comes first. Okay, so down here we have some shapes, and they have been plotted with ordered pairs on the coordinate plane. We are not going to do all of these, but we're going to do a couple just to get you started. So it says on the first one that we're looking for the circle. So first we need to identify which one's the circle. So that's right here. And we are going to follow always the x first. So we're going to go over and up every time. So we're going to go over to the 2 and go up until we hit the circle, and that's at 8. So that means that our ordered pair for this one is going to be 2, 8. We're going to do the exact same thing for the triangle. So on the triangle, we're going to go over till we get to it, and that's at 8. And we're going to go all the way up until we stop at the triangle. So 8, 5 would be our ordered pair for the triangle. Now for the square, I want you to find the square and follow over and fill in your ordered pair right here, and then enter your answer into the question box. Okay, so if you followed it over, you should have got 9, 9 as the pair for this one. And that is by following it over and up. So even though they're the same numbers, the answer can't just be 9. So make sure you're putting 9, 9. Okay, for the hexagon, that one is going to be right here. So we're going to follow over 4 and go up 3. And the pentagon is our 5-sided. So it is right here on the 3. And we're going to go up to the 4. And then we are going to leave the trapezoid and the rhombus alone for now. When we go down to this bottom portion, it says describe the difference between the ordered pair for the hexagon and the pentagon. I need you to choose one of the best answer choices for that, and go ahead and select that in your question box. Okay, so you should have said something along the lines of the hexagon and the pentagon have reversed or flipped ordered pairs. So they look a little bit different from one another because they have 4 and 3. So the x was 4 on this one, whereas the x is 3 on this one. And the y was 3 here, and the y was 4 here. Okay, for the next part, it says describe where on the coordinate plane the ordered pair 7, 0 would be located. So first you're going to need to locate where 7, 0 is, and then choose the best answer choice that you can see. Okay, so 7, 0 is going to be located on the x-axis. So hopefully you chose that, because if you follow the 7 over and stay at 0 right here, you're only on the x-axis, because there's nothing, you're not going up on the y. So it's found on the x-axis. Okay, we're going to move over to the back side for your second sheet. And we're going to look at plotting from an ordered pairs from a table. So these right here are examples of tables. And so it says that the column in a table the left column in a table always represents the x coordinate, it should say. Sorry, I had a knock on my door just now. So that's going to be our x value, while the right column will always represent the y. So that's easy to see. If we look at this right here, the x comes first here on the left and the y comes second on the right. And then if it is horizontal like this one, then what that means is that the top row is going to be the x and the y will be on the bottom. So this one right here is going to be your x, this is going to be your y. So either way you look at it, just remember that the x should always, always, always come first. Now down here, we're going to use this table to plot on our grid. So this is going to be our y, so we're going to go ahead and label that, and this is going to be our x. And we're going to go ahead and find 5/15. So that means we're going to go over 5 and up 15. So we're going to plot that right there. So we did that. Then 10, we're going to go all the way up to 30. So if you notice, these are increasing over here by 5, and these over here are increasing by 15. So it should, on these, align where you're increasing by the same numbers in a pattern. Sometimes that doesn't, but right now these are going to. And then our third one, 15, 45. We're going to go 15 all the way up to the 45 and plot that. Now, if you notice, we can't go any further because at 20, it goes to 60, and I don't have 60 on this graph, and that's okay. So sometimes this happens. And what we're going to do is we're just going to connect what we have. Oops, that's a not straight line. And we're going to see if it goes through the origin. And on this situation, it does not go through the origin, which is 0 down here. So on that one, it would not be one that would increase through the origin. Okay, now on this one, we have a different scenario. We have our table, but we do not have this filled out. We do not have the numbers like they did for us on this one. So we're going to have to do that. So first, we're going to start with labeling our x, and we're going to label our y. And now for our numbers, we're going to try to increase by the same numbers. So over here, it's increasing by 3. And if you look down here, these are all multiples of 3. So we can still use 3 on both, which will probably not allow us to plot all of our plots, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30 on our bottom. Now our bottom, our x, is minutes. So I'm going to also need to label that. If you need to pause and catch up with this, that's totally fine. Okay, now our horizontal, or our y, is rotation. So I'm going to label that rotations. And then I'm still going to increase by 3. So I'm going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. So they're still increasing by the same. And now we can plot them, and we can actually use that table to graph. So the first one says it's at 3, 12. So we're going to go over 3, up 12. The next one says 6 24ths. So these are your ordered pairs that go with their column. So 6 and 24, I'm going to go from 6 all the way up. And I did those. Now over here, it's 9 36. So I'm going to go from 9. Well, I don't have a 36. So on this one, unfortunately, I can only plot 2. So that means I'm going to connect those together and then trace them down. Okay, down here on the bottom, this one's going to be kind of you guys on your own. First, we're going to need to establish what the relationship is of the number of donuts side, the x-axis, and the y, because they're going to increase at different rates. So if we look here, the 5 to the 7, that's increasing by 2. So we can see that that's happening. But we know that if it's at 7 and 12 is down here, these are both even numbers and those are odd. So they can't just continue to increase by 2. So somewhere in the middle, it's going to throw a kink in our plan, but we'll have to figure that out. Okay, so then we're going to look at, this goes from 1250. So what we're going to need to identify is how we get from 1250 to this blank that we do not have. So one option is I can try to find 7 on the number line and see how much that would cost. But 7 would not be this black dot. That's going to be 8. So that means that 7 is somewhere in between these two. But it would have to fall after the 6. So we know that 7 is going to be less than $20. And we're going to need to identify how we can find that. So one way that we can figure it out is to increase by different increments until we can figure out what the exact quantity is going to be. So it looks like they're going to increase by $5 because we have the 5 over here. So if I were to add $5 to $12.50, I'm going to get $17.50. And that would give me somewhere in between the 8 here and the 8.20, and then somewhere down here with the 3, which is much lower. And so that says that if you had 3, though, you can see that that would be less than 12. So they actually started this graph less than what they have on the table. So at 3 donuts, they were paying somewhere in between $5 and $10. Okay, so we have something to increase with here. However, if these are increasing by $5, then how would I find out how I get to 20? Because obviously 17 plus 5 is not just 20. So I need to figure out what the difference is. So if I were to subtract $20 minus $17.50, I'm going to get $2.50. So those are only increasing by $2.50. So that means that this number right here can't be 9, which we would normally do if we were increasing by 2. So what I can do, though, is use my graph on this one because we identified that that would be 8, and 8 is at 20. So that tells me that I can fill this out right there. So this one only increased by 1. So that's telling me that 1 is going to be equivalent to $2.50, and 2 is going to be equivalent to $5. Okay, so you guys, I want you to figure out how much this is increasing by over here, and then be able to either use your graph or use your mathematics skills in order to figure out what these 2 columns will be. So this one right here that matches up with the 12, that's going to be your question number 4. So go ahead and select the one that you feel fits it the best. Thanks, guys.